When I went to a town I don't usually visit for shopping, I saw my husband and my mother walking closely together and kissing in public. I was shocked and went up to them to ask what was going on. But instead of feeling sorry, they tried to explain why they were doing it. I went straight to my parents' house, told my dad about what I saw, and decided to get a divorce. After my dad passed away, I had to see my mother and ex-husband again after a long time. When I saw my mother, I noticed she was pregnant. She proudly told me that she was having a baby, implying that I had been waiting for one for a long time but couldn't get pregnant like her. They both insulted me, trying to hurt me, but it didn't work. I found their behavior funny and laughed at them. My name is Emily, and I'm a 24-year-old office worker. My parents had me when they were very young. My mom, Linda, was only 16 and still in high school when she met my dad, Ken, who was 4 years older and worked in construction. They got married because my mom got pregnant with me. It was looked down upon to get married while still in high school, and they faced a lot of criticism from family and others. Since my mother was already pregnant with me, they had no choice but to accept the situation. Their marriage seemed to go well at first. When I was in kindergarten, my dad would often come to pick me up on his days off, especially when it rained. I loved walking home with him under the same umbrella, talking about what happened that day. However, an incident changed everything. While working on dismantling scaffolding, my dad accidentally fell and got seriously injured. His body was covered in broken bones and bruises. This left him handicapped, unable to continue working in construction. Despite going through rehabilitation and finding some work through a friend's connection, he needed ongoing care. During this time, my mother's attitude towards him changed completely. She became cold and distant, refusing to help him with medical visits or daily activities. Even when he fell at home and couldn't move, she ignored him or made sarcastic remarks. It felt like she was bullying him, and I didn't like her behavior. Because my dad had to cut back on work for medical reasons, we weren't wealthy. Since my mom worked at night, I spent more time with my dad during the day and felt closer to him. My mom seemed to ignore me, providing only the basics. Despite this, I managed to graduate from high school. But instead of letting me go to college, my mom told me to work and help support the family. So, I ended up taking the job at a small local company. My dad apologized for my situation, saying it's because of his condition that I have to live like this. But I reassured him, saying I'm happy to work if it means I can help him. Despite hating to follow my mother's orders, I was determined to work hard for my dad's sake. After a few years of working and getting used to my job, I married Michael, a senior colleague. I wanted to create a warm family with him, unlike my parents' distant relationship. Michael promised to cherish me and expressed his desire to have lots of kids. I was happy and accepted his proposal. However, despite trying, we couldn't conceive. Michael started blaming me, saying it must be my body that's the problem. He refused to consider infertility treatment and berated me for not being able to have children. I held onto hope and continued trying to conceive. But it didn't work. Michael started staying out late, claiming it was because of work. I began to suspect he might be cheating. There were signs like perfume on his clothes and unexplained expenses on the credit card. One day, when I went to a town I don't usually visit for shopping, I saw Michael, who was supposed to be at work, walking with another woman. Wait, why is Mom walking with Michael? It was my mother smiling and walking next to him. Since I got married, I kept my distance from my mother. I hardly ever brought my husband to my parents' house, so there was no reason for them to talk to each other besides when we got married. Curious about this strange sight, I watched them closely without them noticing. To my surprise, they held hands and kissed right before my eyes. What the heck is going on? I couldn't help but raise my voice. Unaware of my shock, they continued walking away. Finally, I yelled out, "Hey, Michael, Mom, what are you doing?" Unable to bear it anymore, I chased after them, calling for them to stop. This made them show a surprised expression. "Oh, what's the rush, Emily? Why are you so flustered?" "It's not about being flustered." "What are you two doing together?" I demanded. "What do you mean? I just happened to meet Michael here, So we were just greeting each other since it's been a while. Is there a problem with that? My mother seemed to be playing dumb. Seeing my mother after a long time, she looked young for her age. If not told, one might think she was in her 40s. As I approached her, I noticed something familiar, the scent. It was the same scent I had smelled on my husband's clothes when he came home late. I didn't want to admit it, but I was convinced that my mother was my husband's affair partner. Don't lie, I saw it just now. You and Michael kissing. Oh, you must be mistaken. We just happened to bump into each other, that's all, my husband said, trying to cover up the situation. I didn't think we'd be found out so soon. Why are you even here? What do you mean? I thought we could deceive you a bit longer since you're so oblivious, but I didn't expect you to actually see us like this. My mother chimed in. Well, it's exactly as you suspected. I actually prefer older women like Linda. Sorry, I did feel bad for you, Emily. But I've liked Michael since we first met, my mother admitted shamelessly. We just happened to meet by luck one day, and while having tea, things just developed from there. I'm still young, and I want to experience love. Our marriage was already strained, and the more I talked to Linda, the more I was drawn to her, Michael confessed. All right, I heard about it, Emily. You two are having trouble conceiving. Michael really wanted a boy, and because of you. My mother's words trailed off as she pointed fingers at me. Unbelievably, my husband had shared all our private issues with my mother. Despite my struggles and attempts to seek help, he blamed everything on me, pretending to be the victim. Anger welled up inside me, and I realized I could never continue this marriage. You're the worst. Do you even understand what you're doing? I yelled at them, both of whom kept making stupid excuses. It's because you're a failure as both a wife and a woman that this happened, Michael shot back. I don't need a husband like you. I want a divorce, I declared. Honestly, I've been tired of you for a long time, always making excuses and unable to have kids. It'll be a relief to be rid of a useless, good-for-nothing wife like you, Michael spat. Despite claiming to feel bad, my mother's apology was insincere. But then I threatened to tell Dad about the affair, and her demeanor changed. There's no evidence of our affair anyway. It's your and Michael's business if you divorce, but I'll divorce when I feel like it. Let's go, Michael, my mother said, urging him to leave. Despite their obvious affair, my mother didn't seem to want to divorce my father immediately, unlike Michael. I went straight to my parents' house and told my father everything. So, I've put up with that woman for years. I never expected her to be this terrible to her own daughter. My father expressed his disappointment with a bitter look. Michael and I will get a divorce. I can't stay married after what happened. What will you do about Mom? I asked. Don't worry, I have a plan. I won't let them have their way, my father assured me. Later, Michael sent a completed divorce form, which I signed, finalizing our divorce. My mother hadn't returned home since then, apparently eloping with Michael. Though it was infuriating, my father told me to let go of them both, and I decided to forget about my ex-husband and my mother. After moving out of the apartment I shared with Michael, I returned to my parents' house. My father had become quite capable of taking care of himself, ironically thanks to my mother's lack of assistance. It's unfortunate things turned out this way, but I'm happy to be living with you again, Emily. Thank you for coming back, my father said, as we spent a brief period of peace together. But that life didn't last long. My father got sick with pneumonia that was going around and suddenly was on the brink of life and death. Emily, I've made you endure so much, and I'm truly sorry. From now on, live your life the way you want, my father said with a fading consciousness, firmly grasping my hand. I nodded through my tears. Despite the efforts to treat him, his condition rapidly worsened, and he passed away. Dad, I can't believe you're gone so suddenly. I wish I had been there more for you, I whispered, grief-stricken. While preparing for my father's funeral in a state of depression, an unexpected visitor came to our house. Long time no see. Heard he died, my mother said, and to my dismay, my ex-husband Michael was standing there too. They entered the house with disagreeable smiles on their faces. "What are you doing here? Now leave," I demanded, shocked by their presence. "Huh, who do you think you are? I am his wife, you know. It's only natural for his wife to come running when her husband dies," my mother retorted. "How dare you say that after running off and not contacting us for years?" I shot back. "Ah, yes, yes, say whatever you want. But no matter how much you scream, I am his wife. That means I have a right to the inheritance. There was insurance, wasn't there? Disgusting. So that's why you never divorced Dad," my mother said, pressing the issue. That's when I noticed something about my mother. She was wearing maternity clothes, and her belly was really big. Noticing my gaze, she laughed triumphantly. "Oh, you noticed? Yes, I'm carrying Michael's child, Emily. You couldn't have one no matter how long you waited, so I'll have the child instead. Unlike you, we managed to have a child right away. Now I can finally become a father. Breaking up with you was truly for the best," my mother said, hurling the most hurtful insults she could. However, their plans to hurt me backfired. Unfortunately for them, I wasn't affected at all. "Oh, that's hilarious. Both of you look so stupid together," I laughed, holding my stomach as the two looked dumbfounded. "Ridiculous. But are you sure that child is really Michael's?" I questioned. Michael looked annoyed at my question, but my mother's demeanor suddenly changed. Her eyes darted around, and she seemed visibly shaken, though Michael didn't seem to notice. "It's definitely my child. Don't say such baseless things just because you're bitter," my mother snapped. "Yes, that's right. Don't be so sour about it." We'll see if it's a baseless claim once you see this," I said, stepping away and returning with a document in hand. I presented it to them. "What's this all of a sudden?" "Oh, what? What are you so shocked about? It can't be that important. What's this supposed to mean?" Both were shocked by the content of the document. It was an investigation report from a detective agency summarizing my mother's social interactions. Not long after my mother eloped with Michael, I coincidentally saw her in the city. However, she was not with Michael, but with a young man I didn't recognize. Following them discreetly, they entered a hotel together. What does this mean? Could it be that Mom is? I decided to have my mother's behavior investigated after consulting with my father during his lifetime, thinking it might be useful someday. The detective agency's investigation confirmed that indeed my mother was deeply involved with a man other than Michael. Reading the document with a look of disbelief, Michael saw detailed information about my mother and her lover. After finishing the report, he glared at my mother standing beside him. "What in the world? Were you deceiving me? That's ridiculous," Michael exclaimed. "Emily is lying. The child in my belly is definitely yours," my mother insisted, despite being flustered. "Who do you believe, Emily or me?" my mother asked, trying to persuade Michael. "That makes sense. Accusing your own mother just because you couldn't have children." "What a terrible woman," Michael said, persuaded by my mother and seeming to regain his composure. They decided that the report was false and began to blame me once again. "You're free to believe what you want. But unfortunately, there's conclusive evidence. You can come out now," I said, calling someone in the next room. Then a man entered. "Who's that? Who is he?" "I don't know him." Both were puzzled by the appearance of the man they didn't recognize. "This is my husband. You wouldn't know him, of course, because after you, I got remarried to him. His name is Tom. I met him through a friend a year after divorcing Michael and remarried him. How does this man prove anything, unlike with you? I am actually pregnant with his child, of course." "So what? Speak clearly. Don't you get it? I couldn't conceive with you, no matter how hard we tried. But with Tom, I got pregnant right away," I said firmly. Michael seemed to realize the implication of my words, and his eyes widened. "You avoided going to the clinic because it was a hassle, but I had tests done, and there were no issues with my fertility. So the problem was with you." "That's a lie. But it's strange, isn't it? Supposedly, you have infertility issues, yet my mother is pregnant. Are you sure that baby is yours?" I challenged him. Faced with my question, Michael couldn't argue back and glared at Linda beside him. Hey, tell me the truth, I demanded. Ah, fine, you win. You admitted it pretty quickly. I thought you'd deny it more. Being with you, Michael, was just a game for me, my mother confessed. What do you mean? I was with you because you were Emily's husband, wanting what someone else has. But my true love was another man. I was planning to leave you soon anyway, she continued. Shocked by her words, Michael was left speechless. I planned to enjoy this game until I got caught. Well, it doesn't matter whether or not I'm carrying his child. My right to the inheritance remains unchanged, my mother stated confidently. You're still talking about the inheritance. Unfortunately, you'll have to give up on that idea, I interjected. What? How many times do I have to say it? I never divorced your father, so I have a right to the inheritance. That's what I've been trying to tell you, my mother argued. There's no such right because you and Dad were divorced long ago, I revealed. What? That can't be, my mother exclaimed, her face turning pale. At my words, my mother, who had been smug until then, turned pale. Michael was still glaring at her. I'm going home, my mother muttered, realizing her affair was exposed, and that she would not receive any inheritance. Later, my mother did give birth to a boy, but it was clear without even needing a DNA test that he was not Michael's child. He abandoned my mother, who failed to secure any inheritance, and disappeared, I explained. The man who was my mother's main affair partner also ran away upon learning of her pregnancy. In the end, my mother became a single mother at 40, left to raise a young child on her own without anyone to rely on. She is raising her son on welfare. The care of a small boy at her old age is physically demanding, and she has aged significantly. I once saw my mother with her son from a distance. With increased gray hair, she looked more like a grandmother than a mother. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a healthy girl, and now our family of 3 lives happily. Ironically, the child my mother gave birth to is my half-brother, and he will be in the same grade as my daughter, making our family situation quite complicated. On the anniversary of my father's death, we planned to visit his grave as a family of 3. The betrayal by my ex-husband and mother was painful, but it led me to gain an irreplaceable family. Surely he's watching over us from heaven, right? My Father in heaven must also be delighted with the birth of his granddaughter. With the love he gave us in our hearts, we vow to continue walking closely as a family.